Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Dig Deep Conversations with Christian Leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Aljoe. It is a rainy Wednesday here in Connecticut, so I hope the weather where you are is nice and sunny and or warm. I'm just really ready for summer. Spring is nice, spring is great, but when you have allergies, it's not the best. It's summer that I'm looking forward to. So I hope the weather is good for you all. I do want to welcome you to the show this evening. My new series is starting. It is called Finding the Divine in the Divine Nine. I have Black Greek organizations, so fraternities and sororities coming on, Christian leaders that are active in their fraternities, in their sororities, coming on, and we're talking about their experiences of being Christian leaders and also being part of Greek organizations. I'm very excited about this conversation. I did post a question on Facebook the other day. If you're connected with me on Facebook, I did post a question on Facebook the other day asking which sorority you think I would pledge if I was pledging. And so I did get quite a few interesting answers. So I think I'm going to have to drop some hints throughout the series. Now, I will tell you all that I am not a part of a sorority, but I have always found this experience or these organizations very fascinating. I think they do a lot of great work in our communities. And so part of that is why I wanted to have my guests come on. So let's get right into it. If you don't know me, make sure that you stay connected to me and with me through Facebook, social media, Instagram, YouTube, all of that good stuff. It's CWCL basically on all social media except Twitter. I don't have Twitter anymore. Got rid of that after undergrad. Praise the Lord. Thank God, because Twitter just it's a bit much for me right now, but I do love Instagram, do love Facebook. Make sure that you stay connected with me. I can't wait to connect with you and to see where you're watching from. So if you're watching the replay, make sure you use the hashtag replay. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And if you are here just to represent your sorority or your fraternity, please make sure that you shout them out in the comments. Let's bring on our guest here on tonight. We've got Tiaja and we've got Jonathan. Hi, how are you all?
Hey, we're good. Well.
Good. Thank you all again so much for saying yes. Thank you for coming on and wanting to share your experiences with everyone.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So before we get into our questions for the evening, why don't we just have you all introduce yourselves? If you could just give us your name, your fraternity or sorority, your occupation, and then I think one word to describe your fraternity or sorority. So Jonathan, why don't we start with you?
Awesome. So I'm Jonathan Dukes. I'm an Army chaplain, United States Army active duty. I have been in Navy Side 5 for 4 years now, and also is important. I'm married with 3 awesome children, so praise God for that. So that's a big deal. And I became a member of grad chapter, which is something that's also significant that we'll talk about later. And when I think of a Make Side 5 friendship, that's really the resonating word. I mean, our motto is friendship is essential to the soul, but if you're not a good friend, Meg is not for you.
I love it. Thank you. And we'll get into your experience and what drew you to this particular fraternity. For those of you that don't know, the Divine Nine, let's see if I can get this right now. Here we go. There's alphas, AKAs, kappas, deltas, sigma, gamma, rho, omega, zetas, and did I say sigmas? No, sigmas. Did I get all 9? Oh, and iotas. Ooh, iota.
It's easy if you go in order, but it's all right.
And you should say all of their names because everybody mixes them up because they hear sigma, gamma, rho. They hear like people don't know what belongs with what.
People, I'm people. That's me. That's me. Okay. When I tell you,
yeah.
I like trying to do the flyer, like having to look up like on Google, like I don't want to mess this stuff up. I don't want to disrespect nobody. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. Is the spelling right? Is it right? Like I just don't even want to mess nothing up. So
I love that. Hey everyone, my name is Tiaja Martin. If you forget the Asia, you can call me T. I have been a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated for now 12 years. I currently serve as an admissions manager at a university here in Michigan. But I also run 2 businesses outside of that. One is called the Passionate Powerhouse, where I help people create their personal brand or help small businesses launch their brand. And then my second business is called RT Financial Investments, where I help people find life insurance, final expense, or investment plans to meet their budget and their family's needs.
Awesome. Lots of work, lots of work, lots of work. I love it. We are here for a conversation about all things Christianity, being a Christian leader, being a leader in the community, and then also being an active member in your organization. So I'll share with you all. There are some folks that have very strong opinions about this. I was sharing earlier, I don't feel. I don't feel sort of one way or the other. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it could be a really great thing to be a Christian and also be part of an organization. That is just my personal feelings, my personal thoughts and opinions about it. So the perspective tonight will certainly be from that lens. Having my guests on here, just talking about their experiences and just, I think, helping everyone to really understand sort of what is real and what is not. I think there's a lot of things out there that are being said and shared that are not necessarily real, just from knowing other people in organizations, in fraternities and sororities. And so I really just wanted a chance to have conversations with Christian leaders who have experienced this firsthand, and it's part of their perspective. So thank you all again for coming on. Thank you. I think it's going to be a great conversation. We're going to jump right into it. First, can you all just share with me like why you chose your particular, is it okay to call them organizations or okay? Why did you all choose your particular organization? So Asia, let's start with you, please.
Yeah, so I think my journey to Sigma was very much curated for me, because at the time when I was looking at Sigma Gamma Rho, a lot of my peers were looking at other organizations. So it was a fun time for me and my group of friends while we were first year students at Grand Valley. Sigma stuck out to me once I kind of did some basic research, and we'll kind of go into talking about how to research and how to effectively approach an organization. But I chose Sigma because our founders lived an experience very much akin to my own. Sigma Gamma Rho is the only sorority to not be founded at an HBCU, which my founders were very much accustomed to the experience of a predominantly white institution and the stress that that brings. Not only that, Butler University is situated in Indianapolis, Indiana. So at the time when we were founded in 1922, we were right in the midst of the Ku Klux Klan and the Grand Master actually being in Indiana, okay? So when we think of resiliency of what Black women do, that stuck out to me. I was an aspiring educator at the time as well. So values-wise, the organization and the idea of the organization aligned with me. And then it helped that I liked the girls in the chapter at Grand Valley. I mean, sometimes people don't like the women or the people in the chapter, right? But that was an added bonus. I decided I wanted to join an organization that met my values and I could see myself matriculating through for the rest of my life. I really wanted to make sure that if I partnered with other people, that we could have a greater impact together. I recognized as one person, I couldn't do everything that I wanted to do on my own. So Sigma became like the natural fit for me.
I love that. So I made a couple of notes here. I didn't realize that your particular organization was not founded at an HBCU. Like that to me is just fascinating because you all, I shouldn't say you, but I always associate, Black Greek organizations with being founded at an HBCU. So that's good to know.
We'll talk a lot about NPHC history in this.
Listen, I am just here to learn because it is, again, this sort of life is very fascinating to me, has always been very interesting to me. I was sharing earlier, I had wanted to pledge in undergrad, but I didn't have the GPA. There were GPA requirements. And at the time, the chapter was at a school that was about 15 minutes away, and I didn't have a car. So no transportation, didn't have a GPA. And then by the time I did, I think I just was too focused on wanting to graduate. So, but this is very fascinating. So thank you for sharing that. Jonathan, let's hear your story. Why did you choose the Omegas?
Well, I first want to say that there was one fraternity that was the first to be founded on a historically black college university, and that would be Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So Alpha Phi Alpha and Kappa Alpha Psi were founded on predominantly white institutions, but we were the first fraternity founded on a HBCU. So you put that in your pocket as well.
Thank you.
So I have two Seeking Omega stories. So I have my pre-Jesus Seeking of Omega. So I had no idea about any Black Greek letter organizations before I went to college. And then my roommate was like, "Hey, we're gonna go to a probate." And I'm like, "What's that?" He said, "We're gonna go see the Qs." And I'm like, "Who are those?" And then my first experience with Omega Psi Phi was the Musa chapter in North Carolina A&T, and I saw those brothers, and I was like, "I don't know who they are, but I want to be one of them." And it was just this excitement about how they kind of set the culture for the campus when I was there. Just very sound in their masculinity, and and then I went to class. I was an electrical engineering student. And I'm like, these same brothers that's out here, in the fatigues and the boots, they're out here getting A's in engineering classes. So I'm like, what's going on with these brothers? So that and then obviously I saw them partying and setting out hops and marches, and that's what I aspired to be. So then I went to the military in the middle of my undergrad years, and then I came back, and then I got saved or rededicated my life January 1st, 2011, and then my priorities shifted because so at this point I'm working night shift, electrical engineer major. I had a girlfriend slash fiance about to get married and commissioned in the Army. So I was very interested, but I'm like, man, that's gonna be rough because I'm working night shift, right? So I got to feed myself. So, but it was interesting. So at ROTC in North Carolina A&T, I got a call to chaplaincy, to Army chaplaincy. So I look on the wall, and the first Black commandant of the Army Chaplain Center in school was on the wall of the A&T ROTC building, and he's an Omega man. So then I go to the engineering building, and the first Black astronaut to go in space, I believe, was Ronald E. McNair, and he's an Omega man. And then my professor of military science, so we out there running ROTC, and I hear somebody barking. I said, "Oh, he's an Omega man too." I said, "Okay, say no more." So, and then I went to Pittsburgh in 2013, and the bishop that I was sitting under, Omega man. So I'm over here like, okay. Oh, so I was being formed by the excellence of, Black clergy, Black chaplains. Matter of fact, the first Black chief of chaplains in the United States Army is an Omega man, Matthew Zimmerman, right? So it's some of our founder, Bishop Edgar Amos Love, is an Army chaplain, right? So it's some of our chaplains in being clergy. So I was like, okay. So then, like I said, when I went to seminary in Houston, my wife was like, "You gonna finish school first before I let you, join this organization," because she knew that once I got into the organization, I was going to get active and get involved. And we also had a 2-year-old baby, and she was pregnant, so she was like, "Nah, brother." But as soon as I got to Fort Polk, Louisiana, I found out there was a Mega Psi Phi chapter out of Gamma Gamma. Before I even got there, I'm already reaching out like, "Hey, I'm interested in your organization," and Lord made it happen in 2019. I became a member of Omega Psi Phi. So that's a little bit of my journey to becoming a Omega man.
Wow. Isn't it so interesting how it's, sometimes like you look at people like celebrities or, scientists or educators or whomever, and you wouldn't even think that they were part of, different organizations or anything. And then you're like, oh, snap. Okay. So it's always very fascinating. It sounds like for both of you, the organizations really connected with your values and where you saw yourselves going in your future. And so it wasn't just, I like the colors. I like, the representation that they have on campus. Like there's personal connections for both of you. So I really love that. Can you talk to me a little bit or just kind of explain to folks who don't know, sort of if, TH, I think you brought it up earlier, like if you're interested in an organization. So do you prefer Jonathan or John, by the way?
Jonathan or Dukes, whatever. I'm in the Army, so you call me Dukes, it's fine. It doesn't really matter.
Okay. So if you were listening, Dukes, mentioned grad chapter and also undergrad chapter. So can you all just explain the difference between the two of those?
Yeah. So, to answer your first question about how to approach an organization, I do want to dispel the myth. Most of us are attracted to the organization for superficial reasons first. So, if you are still there, it's okay. It's totally okay. So you approach an organization kind of, you almost want to be a smooth operator, mainly because all of us, when we have a healthy relationship amongst ourselves, we talk about a myriad of things. And sometimes one of those things are people that are interested in if they fit the caliber of the organization, right? Because we all do have standards, whether they seem stereotypical or not.
Yeah.
Academics and positionality in the community matters. So as long as you are matriculating towards a bachelor's degree, I can't remember if Iota Phi Theta switched their requirements because that was a touchy conversation when I was coming into Sigma Gamma Rho. You have to have a certain GPA. Each organization is a little bit different, but I think the going minimum is a C, which is a 2.5 GPA. And then before you finish your degree, if you decide to join an organization, you are a member of the undergrad chapter. Should you have finished your bachelor's degree, the next option is a graduate chapter, even if you aren't going to graduate school. So that option is for any person that has a bachelor's degree. If you are working in your field, you're not going to get a master's or a PhD, you would still be a graduate member because you have finished undergrad, if that makes sense. At that point, you have the capability to kind of mentor, be a professional kind of mentor to the undergraduates that are like 19, that think that they know everything and haven't experienced life yet.
Yeah, I love that. So if y'all are thinking about, Dr. Aljoe, you said you had a GPA. Yes, that is right. In undergrad, Dr. Aljoe had below a 2.5 in college. All right, get over it. All right, God does all things well. Okay, thank you. No.
Yeah, that's okay. I had a semester or two where mine dropped below, and I was on social probation until I got mine up. So it happens.
So social probation, what can you explain that?
Yes. So my specific chapter and in our organization, we do have academic standards that you have to uphold after you become a member. Wearing letters is an additional bonus and a privilege. All of us go to school to get a degree. So if you can't academically perform, you are kind of bringing down the image of the sorority. So because scholarship is a part of all of our pillars of success, you have to make sure that you're performing well in class. So social probation means you're not going to a party. Yeah. You're not going to a step show. Yeah. You are not hanging out in your letters. You should be in the library quietly getting yourself back together because you let yourself go. So my social probation lasted academic semester. Got that corrected and got back out.
I love that. See, so I think it's, there I think are sometimes some negative stereotypes out there about, it's all about parties and doing this and all the strolling and all this other stuff. And it's like, no, we're definitely focused on academics. I see my best friend Nova is here. Yes, she can attest to my undergrad days, but we're not going to go there. Jonathan, anything about grad or undergrad?
So first, you have to you have to know why you want to be a part of an organization, and because you don't want to get lost and you don't want to lose yourself in trying to be something that you're not, if that makes sense. So a Greek letter organization should be an extension of what you've already been called to be by God. So you shouldn't have to undermine who you are to be part of an organization. That should be an organization of excellence anyway. So on the grad chapter side, so undergrad, the stereotype is that you're coming there to kind of be known, cloud, a little bit of community service, but mostly notoriety and to be out, right? But on the grad chapter side, it's a little more emphasis on the business side and the service side more so than the undergrad, right? So if you're seeking on the grad chapter side, you should already be doing community service. already.
Mm.
Like, because one, timing is everything. So it would be awful for them to be having a line, and then you like, oh, I wish I was doing community service, and now you can't even apply because you didn't. So if you want to be part of an organization, you should be doing community service now, because best believe as soon as you become part of an organization, you're gonna be on the front line serving, especially as a new member. I hope so. You should come to understand you're going to be serving, and you should want to. That's why you should be wanting to be part of the organization anyway, to help uplift the community, make the community better, and to promote Black scholarship and Black education. Like that's what you should be doing. Second, go to some events. So when they're doing community service, you should go. Don't just go to parties, because that gives off a perception. But when if they go do a mentorship event, if they're doing a community service, they have a worship service, then you should go. And then go to different things, so you can see kind of like what it'll be like. And then also start reaching out and being able to have that conversation. Sir, ma'am, I'm interested in your organization. You got to swallow your pride and just come out with it, because it'll actually look worse if somebody says, I need you for 5 or 6 years, and you join my organization and you need to come talk to me. It can kind of look like, why didn't you share that information with me? Because you never know who can help you in the long run anyway, if that makes sense. And then make sure your finances are in order.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
it's a financial investment. I'm just gonna be frank with you. It's a financial investment, and you're willing to pour money into what you deem is important. So just know that it's a sec, and then make sure you're willing to make some time commitments and sacrifice other things. In the joining aspect, if you were to join, there are going to be some time commitments. So it is some sacrifice, and it is some time to serve and to be a part. Amongst your sisters or brothers. So just know that, like, when you have to really humble yourself to want to be part of the organization, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Because you're essentially asking, what can you add as value to that organization? I mean, they could pick anybody, but why should they pick you? So you're kind of saying, hey, here's what value I can add, and here's why I would see myself as a valued member of this organization. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. And thank you all for breaking that down and explaining that. I see Joan is watching. Joseph is tuned in on YouTube. Joan is on YouTube. What's going on, Joan at the Rhode Island? I see my girl Marissa is here from Facebook. So I do see you all's questions. We are going to get to these questions. So Dukes and Tiaja, can you all see the question on the screen there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll start with that question first, if y'all don't mind answering that.
Yeah.
What's the question?
So it says, is grad chapter solely focused on community service and attending events that the organization has? And then 2 follow-up questions to that are, what are the other benefits, and how will being a part of an organization help someone further down the road?
So I will let the Neo go first. And then I will follow up as the elder.
There you go.
I will give deference. So it's not. So the organization is not only about community service, but like that's a major part of it. Most Divine Nine organizations were created to combat women's suffrage, civil rights, Jim Crow. Like, they've always been action-driven organizations. So to come in and not want to serve is kind of counterproductive. So that's what we're there. We do, almost all of us do some kind of mentorship with middle or high schoolers to promote Black scholarship and get these young people involved in activities that help them get to college and things of that nature. So we're always trying to, and then most of us are helping professions anyway. So that's just an extension of what we already do. And then attending events. Yes, you'll definitely attend events. There's going to be meetings, chapter meetings, district meetings, national meetings, and then you'll do some national Pan-Hellenic Council meetings where you'll collaborate with other D9 organizations in your city or county to do a collaborative effort to help impact your community in a positive way. And then what are the other benefits? So for me personally, being a Black officer in the Army is a place where it helps to have people who I culturally align with. And then when you add being in a fraternity, it makes it even better. So like I said, because I'm moving every 2 years, and that means that I gotta kind of fit in everywhere I go. So me being a member of Omega Psi Phi, like even when I go to Georgia in 2 months, I already have brothers there who say, "Hey, here's where you should live. If you know you need me to help pick your wife up from the airport, we'll take care of her. Hey, here's my son. Your son can play with my son. Hey, do you need church to go to? I mean, it's a brotherhood. That's why I said if you want to be a mega man, you got to be a friend first because we should all be guilty of being a good friend. So that's definitely benefits. Besides that, so we talked about undergrad and grad chapter. So if you're in a fraternity or sorority, and so my sister here, she's in the education field. So if you're an undergrad, you say, hey, soror, I need a job, right? And she's in the education field. Well, now you have somebody who can help you navigate which way to go. So you get mentorship, professional development, camaraderie, and you have somebody to ask tough questions before those tough problems even arrive, because you have that bond that you can ask those challenging questions. And how being a part of that organization, I mean, honestly, since I've been grown, I realized that the cool part about being in college was you always had people to hang out with. And then you get grown, you have kids, and then you realize that you don't really have as many friends as you think you had. So being part of my organization, I actually have people who are culturally aligned with that I actually get to hang out with and spend time with as a Black American young adult. Because it gets kind of lonely after you graduate because you actually have to go find and seek people, and then you don't always have time. But being a part of the organization, even when you travel, let's say you go on vacation, you can reach out to your sorors or your fraternal brothers, even overseas. I mean, I have frat brothers in Japan, Germany, Korea, you name it, and it's a blessing.
So I'll kind of fill in some of the spaces that we can expound upon a little bit. So Miss Marissa, the straight answer to your question, the first part is grad chapters solely focus on community service and attending events that the organization has. The answer is no. We are focused on multiple things at once. As Dukes mentioned, I'm going to get comfortable calling you Dukes.
Right.
Like
Right. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
As Duke mentioned, the community service at the grad level is almost imperative, because at that point, because you've gone through undergrad and because you are now a part of the workforce, by definition, you're a citizen of your regular community. Mm-hmm. So because you're a member of your community, there should be issues going on within your community that you see as a problem, and you are trying to position yourself as a problem solver by being a member of any organization. So that naturally puts a demand for you to go to events, to want to host events. If here in Michigan, every summer we have an issue around kids drowning in Lake Michigan. I think it's still a going thing that Black people don't know how to swim. So for example, Sigma Gamma Rho has a swim initiative to deal with that specific issue. So that naturally puts a demand to go to that type of specific event, right? So naturally, it organically becomes you go to events, but there's much more that we do outside of just formal events. We still need to bond. Like, just because we share letters doesn't mean that we're best friends. Sometimes we're just co-laborers in the work that we agreed to do together. So you need to hang out. And as Dukes mentioned, sometimes you need to have your kids around other kids that share the same values. I will say, as my favorite benefit is going to a new city, a new state, and looking across the room and thinking that I'm alone, and I find out that someone else in the group is there. At the university that I'm working at now, there is less than 10 domestic people of color on faculty and staff. And when I saw another Black male at work, he's significantly older, so I immediately respected him as an elder, because he had the gray hair and he walked like a mature uncle, if you will. But as we got to talking, he saw my SG Rho bracelet and he goes, I'm a Phi Beta Sigma. And it made sense to me that someone like him would be at a campus like I am, because we are one of the few. So principally speaking, our values align, and because there's not that many of us, we have a history that helps us be a little bit more bold to go in spaces that most people aren't there.
Mm.
That man is easily 30 plus years my senior, but felt that same sense of relief and camaraderie when he saw another person with these letters on. So further down the road, as you get older and as you've lived through more things, you have the ability to go back and reach back. I think, tell me, remember which philosopher talked about the talented 10?
W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yes. Believe it or not, he's a member of.
I think the Alpha.
He is an Alpha. Okay, I knew it was, and I think Booker T. Washington is an Omega man, right? Can't remember.
I'm gonna get back to you on that one. Yep.
Okay. Anyway, both of them are in fraternal organizations.
Mm-hmm.
But I say that to say when we started talking about the talented 10th, the principle was a 10th of the Black people in America would rise to the top, and it would be their responsibility to go back to the community and continue lifting the rest as we all climb. So by definition, sometimes we take on that position. I have access to different information and resources. Now I want to bring that back home to my community where I live and I'm a regular citizen at. So that's kind of like the long-term ways that it can help further down the road. But having a network and a net becomes your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
You immediately inherit friends that are doctors, that are lawyers, that serve in the military, that teach, that you immediately get people in all different areas, and now they're in your phone and you have access to them.
And I would love that. I would love
My
that.
sister is here. Hi, Jaleesa. Now that's
and I
my
would love
back.
to add.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Dukes.
So we're talking about the divine and divine nine, right? So I'm gonna bring it to the ministry side, right? So honestly, as a Black man, there's a lot of challenges for Black men to confide in one another, right? For fear of being judged, for the information to be weaponized, or just our insecurities, trauma. So honestly, being in this and being in my organization gives me a platform for men to really be transparent and tell me what's really going on with them. And because men particularly, I'm a man, so I'm just going to speak on men. Like I said, there's a lot of fragility and a lot of insecurities that lead to suffering in silence. So being in a fraternity, when I say friendship matters, like if my fraternal brother called me 2 o'clock in the morning, hey, I really need to talk, that's really serious, and we take friendship really seriously. So it creates a lot of ministry opportunities for me being in my organization.
I love that you mentioned that. I see Renee is watching from Philadelphia. Hi, that's my big sis. Hi, Renee. And then Joseph, we do see your question. So we're actually going to go to that question next. So Joseph on YouTube has a question. If you all can see it on the screen there, I'm going to go to you all. But I love, Dukes, that you mentioned about it's a great opportunity for ministry because, we have to understand that not everyone in these organizations has a relationship with God. And so you all are sort of the light and the ones that can connect people to Jesus a lot of times that maybe they'll never step foot into church, but they're a part of the same organization as you. They're going to different events and they're working alongside with you, and you are able to be a witness for Christ. I really do appreciate that you brought that up. Joseph, thank you so much for asking this question and for watching on YouTube. If you're just tuning in, this is Dig Deep Conversations with Christian Leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Aljoe. Tonight starts my 3-week series, Finding the Divine in the Divine Nine. The question on the floor is, as mature believers, how do you now view the rituals, oaths, and hazing required for admission? And I'm going to let you all answer that to whatever extent you feel comfortable. So Dukes, why don't we start with you?
All right. So I kind of want to dissect that question because things he said aren't necessarily always required. So I just want to put that out there.
Yes.
Especially hazing, because
yes,
clearly, All right. So, from my worldview, our organizations have four P's, right? So you have the purpose, you have the principles, the process to become a member, and then you have practices, right? So we have the purpose, obviously was Alpha. They were the minority. they needed to organize, and they saw that, you know, their European American counterparts got to organize and become, you know, a bond on campus. So they wanted that. So a lot of our organizations started out of Black, you know, young, talented people needing a space to grow, to build bonds, and to help change the world by that togetherness, right? So that's the purpose. And then we have the principles. So like my sister said, our four cardinal principles: manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. And so the principles are solid. So then you have the process, right? So the process and the practices, I would love to say, are uniform cross chapters, but that might not necessarily be the case, right? Just kind of like there's, you know, our organizations were found. My organization was founded over 111 years ago, and anything you give to people over 100 years, there's going to be some people want to do it this way, some people want to do it that way, right? So I wish I could say everybody does the same practices and process, right? But it's incumbent upon me as a Christian to uphold what Christ tells me to do, and make sure that if I'm over a process, that my process follows what Christ tells me to do, and if I'm over a chapter, that chapter exudes the right practices, right? So that's why I get. So that's why I say it's incumbent for you to know who you are as a believer, and if something doesn't align with your convictions, then that's not for you. Mm-hmm. So, but then, I mean, even with churches, right? The churches have a purpose, and we have principles, and there's some practices we love, and there's some practices that some people go a little too far, right? But you have to know what church you can grow in if that's the church for you, right? So I'm not suggesting that like a group organization is the same as the church, but I'm saying any organization you're going to be a part of, you have to check is what they should be about, what they're exuding. If they're not, is it a challenge with this chapter or person, or is it a problem with the organization? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, it's similar to something that I shared at a conference that I was speaking at last week, where I said, you know, we were talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the conversation was about, you know, addressing different diversity issues and having the courage to do so. And I said, you know, at some point when you are addressing things with people, you have to understand, is it this person or is it the institution? You know, is it a problem or a concern of just this one person, or is this a reflection of a larger problem? And so I think you're absolutely right where, you know, there might be some things that are done in any organization, business, you know, social work, whatever it might be, church. There might be some things that you don't necessarily agree with. And if you feel convicted, as you said, then that's reflect on and kind of sort of shift away from if that is the case. Tiaja, let's go to you for this question here.
So sorry, I dropped my phone, y'all. I am klutzy and sometimes put together, and y'all caught me wrong. Joseph, thank you for your question. I think this has been a hot button topic every initiation season. I think last month? So normally in the spring, I see it happen a lot. Like January, when all the January babies are celebrating their Founders Day, like everybody wants to denounce. And then again in the fall, when everybody's having like intake and lines introduce themselves. Yeah. I'm throwing away my letters and I'm burning them because they're a cult. So this question kind of starts to dabble into some of those issues. So I want to say first that Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated is a non-hazing, non-pledging organization. So if you hear anyone talk about stories or anything of that nature connected to hazing or pledging, ask what year they came into the organization and find out when the organization outlawed that. Okay. Financially and insurance-wise, we do not support or endorse any of that kind of thing. So that answers the last part of your question as far as getting into the organization, as you call the admission. As a mature believer, how do I view the rituals and the oaths? Personally, I am revisiting what I think it means to say yes and no to something. My word for the year is agreement, and I'm really trying to be cautious about what I come into covenant with and what type of demands I then put on myself as a result. I went to check through my phone, and it's funny that y'all heard a phone drop. It's just timing wise. I saw a young lady. Her name is Jackie Hill Perry. And I'm specifically citing her because she had a really great conversation about Beyonce. But as she went through it, she started dabbling and talking about some of the other things that we subconsciously come into agreement with. And by us being in this space, we endorse sin, confusion, and all of that. Her conversation indeed made me think twice about my affiliation with Sigma Gamma Rho. Am I in a space where I am considering throwing away my letters or thinking that I made a horrible decision? No, I am not. But I am revisiting what does it mean to come into covenant with something, whether I knew what it meant initially or not. So that's where I'm at as a mature believer, where I'm revisiting what does that yes mean and what does that no mean. When I was first initiated into the organization, or I joined Sigma Gamma Rho, a lot of my clothes were blue. A lot of my clothes were gold. At one point, I had blue highlights in my hair, y'all. Right? I was, as she wrote out, you couldn't tell me nothing. My schedule, it changed as I added something, but I never let Sigma drive my life. It was just an addition to it. So for people that were used to having access to me, and they had now even more limited access to me, they felt that Sigma took me away from them. So they felt like it had became my God, or that I was worshiping, or that I was just so absorbed in Sigma. But it's almost like what happens when you start dating somebody. Share space and your time division looks very different. In my heart, though, Sigma never took priority over the things that were already prioritized. What I've seen other people do with the rituals and the oaths, they take that and they make those priorities or make that mental connection much bigger than it ought to be. So that's where it becomes kind of problematic for each person. I will say the people that decide to denounce, their positionality on things is always a little tricky for me. And even the people that decide to stay and say negative things about the organization is, again, tricky for me, because they leave out the part of the conversation for why they felt comfortable saying yes in the first place before they decide to leave. There's a lot of negative, but we kind of leave out the positive. So I think we missed the opportunity for a full, well-rounded conversation around that. So I hope, Joseph, I answered your question as best as possible.
I love that you brought out, it's your organization does not drive you. It's an addition. And I really appreciate you saying that. And I do think, just like with Christianity, it is an individual walk. And that's what I'm hearing from you all's comments, is that, your conviction is going to be individual. How you engage and interact with the organization, where you place it, where you prioritize it, is individual. And so I really do appreciate also your transparency there, and sharing that, you are in a space now where you are sort of re-questioning and reflecting, and not necessarily your membership, so to speak, but so I think that is truly powerful. Yes, go ahead, Dukes.
So I try to stay away from saying what not to do, but I always ask questions, right? So biblically, right? Will we say that Naomi and Ruth did they make a covenant, right? Did Naomi not say to Ruth, "Hey, wherever you go, I shall go," right? And unto the glory of God. Did Jonathan and David not make a covenant to be friends and be loyal to each other? When Jonathan obviously could have pursued the kingdom because his daddy was the king, so he gave up his rights to be king for God's covenant with David, right? And then let's look at Jesus. I mean, Jesus chose 12 men to fellowship with and to share his mission to the world through those 12, and they served the community. They did ministry together, and he broke bread with them. And he said, as you love each other, that's how I want the world to know about me, by how you love one another. And then also, if you start to think about it, he said, there's no greater love than this, than one who will lay down their life for their friends, right? So there's even some biblical aspects of friendship and why you are connected more so than just being connected. So that's something that who people are considering. You got to explore, why are you connected? Why are you choosing to become friends? Are you walking together? Are you walking alongside people? And then what is your purpose? So if someone says, hey, not everything about this organization is right. If that was the case, am I not a light in a dark place?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't I bring the Holy Spirit with me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So can I be the proponent of change? Because last time I checked, God used us as ambassadors to say, come back to God. So let's say there was a young person who was misguided. What better than a person in the same organization to say, hey, how you doing spiritually, right? So if we're not in the organization, so then there's a whole, over 2 million, just lost, people in the organization right now without us influencing them. And a lot of organizations were founded by Christian leaders too. So that's another thing to consider.
I love that extra, the little razzle dazzle piece there. It's like you just, cut everything and just gonna sprinkle a little bit on top. I love it. I absolutely love it. I do see some additional comments here. So that is the end result. The question is the rituals and it was before. So I think Tiaja touched upon that and said, it's an individual thing, the oaths and the rituals and prioritizing. And, as a believer, knowing where your convictions lie and knowing where your relationship with God is and what you are prioritizing. And I think that's true with anything. I could prioritize work. I could prioritize my own ministry over my relationship with God. My relationships over God. So I think it does become an individual thing.
Can I test that question right there?
Yes, yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm just going to keep it plain. Like I was a man called by God to be his light and sit on top of it. I mean, to be a minister before I'm a minister. So even if somebody is not D9, I'm not going to be like, hey, I can't pray for you. I can't minister to you. I can't, I got friends in the fraternity, out of the fraternity. I'm an Army chaplain. So I minister to people who believe like me. I minister to Muslims, Mormons, Jewish folks. So that's what I was saying. Just because you see somebody who may make their organization an idol, that doesn't make the organization promote idolatry. It's two different things. So I'm hopefully I'm a Jesus follower through His grace and His Spirit to anybody, whether you are in a D9 organization or not.
Mm-hmm. So Nova Kane, I love this question, and I think perception is what's going to drive the answer. Mm-hmm. So I would say on the premise of how you frame the question, the natural answer is yes. And it alienates you because you're not in the organization. So you can't go to the meetings with me. You can't wear the same outfit as me. You can't get in the line. You can't step with me. So like you're on the outside. So by definition, if you feel that creates distance and alienation, then yes. Is that anyone's intention? No. What happens is exactly like Duke's explained. When you join an organization, when you get married, whenever you create a new relationship, there's always an inside joke. There's always something special about it. And I think what happens is when people are familiar with you in one way and they aren't able to maintain that familiarity anymore, there is that distance that begins to feel like alienation. So when you, I think that's what creates that friction sometimes for some people. And then again, family and friends, Sunday nights, you always have something to do. Yeah, I do. Why is that a problem? Right? So now we really have to go. So the issue isn't the organization. It actually is the perception of what you think the organization means to that person and the access that you had to the relationship. I, in my heart, never felt like my family lost me. But because I shifted my priorities and I added something to my plate, something else did take a loss. So I had to humbly accept that, yeah, my family did miss me because they might have wanted me to be at family dinner Sunday night, but I had a chapter meeting. So I had to kind of massage the fact that the time spent wasn't the same anymore. But the inverse was true too. My family needed to accept that I made a choice to add something else to my life, which further separated me as an individual to go out and serve. Now the call to serve is still broad and anyone can join, whether it's through an organization or independent, but that still drives us to have different agendas. And sometimes different is just uncomfortable and it naturally just alienates us from one another sometimes.
And, Justine said in the comments, it's just like when we get saved. If you come from a family that's not saved or friends, group of friends. I know when I first got saved, my girlfriends and I were out faithfully Wednesday through Sunday at the clubs, everything. And I said, hey, y'all, so I don't party I didn't say, I would say, I don't party anymore. That's why I don't party no more. And it did feel, for me, it felt like I was alienating them. But I knew in my heart, I was prioritizing my relationship with God. I knew that I could not, go to the club and hang out with my friends and, having them drink around me at that stage. Even now, I don't feel comfortable. That was my conviction. And I felt like I couldn't be an effective witness for Christ if I'm out clubbing with them and then, but y'all come with me to church on Sunday morning. That's me. That's my conviction. If that's not where you're at, that's okay. But that was me and my conviction. And so I feel like sometimes for me, it did feel like I was alienating them and that I was ignoring them. And again, that transition was challenging. So I can only imagine that challenge of a transition for someone that's active in their organization and also active in their church community and also active in their professional life and also active in their personal life as well. So I think that's a great challenge and a great opportunity to continue. Again, this sort of keeps ringing here, this theme about prioritizing. How do you prioritize different things? How do you make sure that people, that you're doing the best that you can, and making sure that people are understanding of that. And if they aren't, kind of figuring out how to navigate from there. So we've got a couple minutes left. Can y'all believe that we only got to like one of the questions that I sent them ahead of time?
I told you.
It's so good though. It's so good. Okay, I'm trying to think. Let's go with, let me ask my guests. Let me ask you all. Was there any questions that you were just like, ooh, can't wait to talk about this when we get on the show? I think we've kind of touched upon a lot of different things from some of the other questions. But was there any particular questions that you all were really just, if Dr. Aljoe don't ask this question, I'm gonna message her after and tell her about herself. Any ones that you in particular wanted to answer?
I'm looking at our question list right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk a little bit since we're digging deep on the faith side.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No one in my church really understood what it meant to join a sorority or fraternity, especially Sigma Gamma Rho. So I kind of got a chance to be a light in a space where people weren't familiar with blue and gold together. They've seen variations, but they weren't very familiar. Hey, my sorors are here. Shout out to the Grand Rapids grad chapter. Woo-hoo. So it was a little different having my church family just not be super familiar with my organization. But they did know of the community positionality in bringing the good things that way. So my church was very supportive of me being active. My bishop politely gave me a 2-finger tap to make sure that I understood the principles of the organization and was I truly okay. And I think I appreciated that the most because that kind of gave me the comfortability to start challenging and asking some of those tough questions. So I'll leave everyone with sharing, like, make sure you're in a community or around people that will make you be thoughtful about your decisions. Because from that, it helps you blossom or grow in a better way.
I love that. I think it is important to anything that you do is to know who's going to be in your corner and not just always yes, go, do, but really help you question in a good way the decisions that you are getting ready to make. And I think too, I'm certain you felt this as well, knowing that if things didn't turn out the way that, you would have wanted them to go, or if you decided to change your mind or whatever, that those people would have been there to support you still. They wouldn't have been like, well, we told you not to do blah, blah, whatever the case may be. So I do like that you talked about that community and that support that you received from your ministry. Dukes, I'm curious to hear about you because you are 4 years into this now. And I think you had mentioned that you had already rededicated your life to God as well before sort of going ahead on to grad chapter or to pledge grad chapter. So can you share a little bit about sort of what Christians in your inner circle, how that conversation went? Did you have people that supported you, were completely against you? Just talk a little bit about that.
Well, I had one friend from college who thought that like our organization mimicked the gang, and I was like, "Come on, brother! Like, come on, man!" And it's the things that people would think about Christians without doing their research is I don't say similar, but it's a lot of like commonality between just people make these generalities with not even talking to you or knowing about your organization or what it stood for or why they even formed. I just wish people would do a little homework on why these organizations were formed. These were young Black men and women dedicated to making the world better by uniting because they were facing discrimination, women's suffrage, civil rights, Jim Crow. I mean, trying to get Black officers trained before they went to World War One. Like, if you don't understand the historicity of it, and then you see one person doing something that you don't agree with, then you just want to throw the whole organization away. So for me, all I can do is be the man God has called me to be and continue. So the things that I would be doing if I wasn't a mega man. But I love doing them because I'm a mega man. And then when a young man sees me, I'm already marketing for him an opportunity to go to college, to live unashamed as a believer in Jesus, and to say, hey, other Black men, we can come together and we don't have to fight each other. That's what fraternity is about. Is I'm building bonds with other Black men, and we're gonna help make the world better by serving and taking care of women. Like my daughter one time, she was like, "Yeah, mommy, daddy's telling the truth. He's an omega man." Like even my daughter holds me to a standard that I'm a man of excellence, right? So I don't ever want that to change. So I just like I said, I just want the church and those who have some challenges to just talk to somebody in the organization, ask, do some homework, and say, and then we're very quick to throw things away without asking, are things redeemable, right? So even if something did fall short of Christ's standard, is it redeemable or is it just bad? And so I just wrestle with those different things. And like, as we talked about, are there people who aren't meeting the standard, or is the organization not meeting the standard? So that's some things that people have to wrestle with. But for me, man, I love being a mega man. I love seeing other D9 people. I don't care what D9 organization. I would say, what's up, Greek? What's up? 1922. Even though November was our Founders Day first. We'll give them a little room. But even how we can joke like that, it just makes. Also, it makes being Black fun. I'm not even gonna lie. Like when Tommy Dog come on and I'm out with my brothers and we send out a hot boy march, it just brings this joy to embrace being Black, embrace being community influencers, and hopefully God is glorified by how I'm able to minister and to help uplift that young Black male who said I wasn't going to college, but because we do a mentorship event, he like, okay, well, if I want to be a mega man now, I'm going to college, and so it's just changing the game. So yeah, we can't be so black and white on everything. It's not it's complex. It really is. It's according to your own convictions, honestly.
Yeah, according to your own convictions. We have hit the 1 hour mark, so we really don't have time to talk about the mentoring that your organizations do. I know a friend of mine is an SG Row, and her young daughters, just I don't know what
is it a Rosebud or is she a rower?
Maybe the Rosebud. I mean, they're like
yeah, she's a Rosebud.
Yeah. And so just for me, just seeing that was just like, oh my gosh, like that's so amazing and great that there's a way for her to now connect with her daughters along with connecting with the organization. And, oh, it's Allison. Hey, Allie. That's my SG girlfriend. Hi, Allison.
Yeah, yay!
So I just thought that was amazing that, she's able to connect with her daughters and get them connected to, again, community. And I think, that's one of the pieces that I think a lot of people misunderstand about these organizations, is that it really truly is connecting the Black community in scholarship, in leadership, in just giving back, sort of promoting one another, doing a lot of great things in the community. So it's fantastic. We didn't get to touch on it. We'll have to touch on it next Wednesday. Before we head out, I have to thank you all so much again for sharing your experiences. Thank you for sharing with us. I know I did see one question from Renee. I don't know if she is still on. We did talk about the requirements for grad chapter. She asked if they were the same as undergrad. So I don't know if it was specific to like GPA requirements, but I know that we did talk about grad requirements earlier on in the show. So Renee, I don't know if you were here during that portion of the conversation, but yes, go ahead, Dukes.
So for our organization, if there was an undergrad chapter at your school while you were in school, you have to wait 4 years. It's just let you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yep.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So, each organization is unique in their timeline between when you can join. Mm-hmm. So please either find a member of that chapter that you're interested in, take them to coffee and ask some basic information. You don't necessarily have to reveal that you're interested in their particular organization. At that point, it's kind of data collection like dating.
Not Dukes now.
No, it's okay.
Well,
I saw the comment.
I saw the comment.
Hey, yeah.
Okay. I was like, what's happening? What's going on?
But once you're a grad person, once you graduated from undergrad, your GPA, it doesn't hold the same weight as when you were in undergrad. So most of the grad chapters that you're interested in, they're going to need a copy of your transcript to verify that you graduated. But again, talking to someone from that grad chapter, they can give you the specifics, even down to the cost that is associated with getting into the chapter. And they can talk you through the logistics, because each of us have national meetings, and at our national meetings, sometimes our intake policies are updated. So what you don't want to have happen is you talk to someone like 5 years ago, they told you something, things have changed, and you missed out on all those changes. So like I said, even if something as simple as going to get ice cream, a coffee, spend some genuine time and get to know what that intake process is going to look like, so you know where you fit and everything. It's easier.
Expectation management. So if you talk to an undergrad person, they might have like 2 semesters when they got to be able to, do intake. Grad chapter, it varies. So expectation management is a big deal. That's why it's essential, like Tia said, to make sure you talk to somebody currently to get the most updated information, because it's a situation, you might go somewhere, they might not have a chapter for a year, or they might be having it, the next season. So it varies.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. Is there anything that you'd like to leave with our guests, or what you would want our guests to walk away with having this just such a great conversation? Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Anything that you all want to share, want the folks to take away from tonight? I'm going to start with Tiaja, and then Dukes, I'm actually going to ask if you would pray us out once you are done. And then I will, after Dukes prays, I'm going to give a couple quick announcements. We'll talk about our guests coming up next week. And then that'll be the end of actually, let me do that. You know what? Let me do that first. We're going to pray. Yeah, we're going to flip it around. We're going to reverse it. Here we go. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the announcements now. Then Tiaja, final thoughts. Then Dukes, final thoughts. And then prayer. Amen. All right, here we go. So coming up, I saw in the comments that I should do a part 2. It is like y'all are like in my mind, because part 2 is already planned. It's coming up next week, Wednesday. We've got, here we go, I'm going to say it, the whole thing. We've got Zeta Phi Beta, we've got Phi Beta Sigma, and we've got Delta Sigma Theta coming next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about finding the divine in the Divine Nine. We're going to continue the conversation with some Christian leaders. We've got pastors, national assistant chair ladies, and national evangelists, social workers, talking about all of these great and wonderful things about being active in their Greek organizations. So I am excited. Make sure that you tune in on next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. right here, Eastern Standard Time, right here. If you are not connected with me, make sure that you connect with me on Facebook, Instagram. I am on TikTok, not on Twitter. I do have a conference coming up, the first official conference, the Dig Deep Conference, Women of the Word. It starts Friday, October 13th, Saturday, October 14th. Registration is now open. This conference is perfect for any woman ages 13 to 65 that wants to intentionally seek a deeper relationship with God through his word and to fellowship with other like-minded women. I have some dynamic preachers coming in on Friday night and on Saturday night. Saturday during the day, we're going to have some workshops talking about studying the word of God, living the word of God, and teaching the word of God. Then we're going to do a women celebrating women brunch afterwards. And then Saturday night, we're going to church and we're going to go home. If you're looking for hotel accommodations, contact me. Let me know. I do have a hotel set up. So if you are interested in coming to that, please make sure that you connect with me. If you're interested in sponsoring a young woman to come, or if you have a business and you want to be a conference sponsor, connect with me as well. That's all that I have. Tiaja, we're going to go to you for final thoughts. And then Dukes, you're going to give us final thoughts and pray us home, please.
Yes. So just so we are clear, everyone tonight has heard loud and clear that Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated is the best sorority out there.
That's what I heard.
But I'm not kidding. Okay.
That's what I heard.
No, the one thing that I do want to leave you all with is that our organizations were designed to be servants to the community, not to be soul snatchers. Okay. Mm-hmm. Please advise that anytime we're talking about culture, the root word is cult. So there's always going to be some type of cult element when you find a culture or a group of people doing the same thing. So be cautious about positionality in your opinion when you start doing the research. All of us have questions, comments, and concerns. Find someone you trust to start unpacking that stuff, because doing it by yourself without real context can lead you down a bunny trail of nothingness, and it doesn't lead us to fruitful advancement, because at the end of the day, we want a space where our kids, our nieces and nephews, and our elders, and even us, have a safe space to grow and flourish. So that's what our organizations are about at the end of the day.
And can you, if you wouldn't mind, either dropping it in the comments or putting it in the private chat and we can post it any way that you want folks to stay connected with you. Y'all heard at the top of the show, Tiaja's got a lot of great stuff. So I want you to make sure that you connect with her. Allison, y'all, y'all sorority sisters, y'all should definitely connect. Okay. Dukes, we are on to you. What would you like the people to walk away from tonight?
Speaking to people of God, my prayer is that we would consider grace. So a lot of things that people judge Greek letter organizations off of, they have to remember that they're thinking about 18, 19, 20-year-old, maybe 22-year-old men and women. And are we being harsher on 18 to 22-year-old Greek letter organization college students than we are 18 to 22-year-old Christians, right? So the same way 18 young adult Christians need discipleship, D9 folks and any young impressionable person needs mentorship. So I just ask and invite the church folks to consider getting to know somebody, praying for them, and ask God, if I was to see somebody in a Greek letter organization, they were doing something that I didn't necessarily align with, have I considered reaching out to them, loving on them, getting to know them, and perhaps creating a bridge to see the gospel flow through that relationship. I would hate to see that your challenges with their membership hinder you from being the witness that God called you to be. So that's my prayer. And if all hearts and minds are clear, I think it's all right. Well, God, we thank you for this awesome and fruitful conversation, and we thank you for the selflessness of the leader in creating this space for us to talk about Black Greek letter organizations in the Divine Nine. And God, I just ask that for every member in the Divine Nine who is a follower of Jesus, that we would continue to live unashamed as your witnesses and as your children, and that we would continue to spread the good news, and we would continue to live and love like Jesus as members of our organizations. And God, wherever in our organization there is doubt, God, bring faith. Wherever there's lack, God, give us more than enough so we can be blessing to those who are in need. Wherever there's friction, bring peace. And wherever there's ungodliness, God, I pray that you would even save members of our organizations, even as we speak on today, and that they would rededicate their lives or surrender to Jesus just based off of this conversation. So, God, we pray that you get the glory from this conversation. Please continue to protect us and keep our morals and our interests pure. And please bless the next conversation next Wednesday as well. That would be glorifying to you, and bless us and keep us as we go to our respective places. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Dukes, I certainly want to extend the offer to you as well. If you want to type in the private chat or in the comments how people can connect with you. Thank y'all again so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Make sure that if you are connected to replay, you are typing #replay. Listen to the podcast, whatever the case may be. So happy to connect with you. I've got my stuff up there. I'm going to throw Tiaja's stuff up there one more time as well. So please make sure that you connect with her. And then once we get Duke's stuff up, we're going to throw his stuff up in there as well. Now, see, okay, so that makes sense, Dukes, because I was trying to find you to tag you on Instagram and I couldn't find you. And I was like, well, I'll have to ask him when I see him tonight. So there you go. So it all works out. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your evening. Here we go. We're going to put it up right now if you want to stay connected. There you go. Perfect. Find them on Instagram. And I think we got one more, the email comment. Hang on one second. Let's get that up there. And there we go. Perfect. So you can connect with my guests, continue the conversation if you're interested in either of these organizations. I'm sure that they will be happy to answer questions or point you in the right direction. Thank y'all so much. Make sure that you tune in on next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on Facebook Live with Dr. Aljoe. Dig deep conversations with Christian leaders. Until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on next Wednesday.